One rainy night, a single mother on the run begs a stranger for help, never knowing he's a wealthy CEO haunted by his own past. What begins as a simple act of kindness spirals into a powerful story of survival, healing, and love that neither of them saw coming. Who is Evan Carter? And why does this broken man risk everything for a woman he just met? And what secret is Lena hiding that could tear it all apart? You won't want to miss a second of this unforgettable journey. Tell us, where are you watching from? And don't forget to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heartfelt tales. The rain came down in sheets, relentless and cold, turning the city streets into slick ribbons of gray. Evan Carter sat in the back seat of a black Range Rover, his elbow propped against the door, fingers idly tracing the raindrops racing down the glass. He wasn't really watching the city pass by. His mind was a whirlwind of boardroom betrayals, missed deadlines, and the gnawing ache of knowing someone inside his company had sold him out. 33 years old, tech CEO, Forbes cover, none of it meant anything tonight. Not with the storm outside, and worse, the one inside his chest. They turned onto a side street near the edge of downtown, where the buildings thinned and streetlights flickered like dying candles. Jesus, the driver muttered, slamming the brakes. Evan snapped out of his daze. What is it? He asked, more annoyed than concerned. The driver pointed. There's someone in the road. Evan leaned forward, squinting through the streaked windshield. In the beam of the headlights stood a woman, soaked to the bone, hair plastered to her face, one arm wrapped tightly around a small child pressed against her chest. Her other arm waved frantically. The driver cracked the window a few inches. Ma'am, this isn't safe. You need to move off the road. Please, the woman gasped, her voice nearly drowned by the rain. I just need a ride, just a few blocks. My son, he's cold. We have nowhere else to go. Evan didn't speak at first. His gaze swept over her, a torn coat, bruises visible on her arms even in the dim light, eyes wild with desperation. The child clung to her like a second skin, his small face buried in her shoulder. His lips moved, but no sound came. A whimper, maybe. A shiver. Evan felt something stir inside him, something unfamiliar and unwelcome. We can't help, the driver said, starting to roll the window back up. Stop, Evan said quietly. The driver hesitated. Sir? Evan reached for the door handle. Open it. The rear door clicked. Rain burst into the car as the woman blinked in disbelief. What? I said get in, Evan repeated, voice steady. Quickly. She didn't wait for a second invitation. She climbed in, clutching her child tight, and the door slammed behind her. The driver looked at Evan in the mirror, brows raised, but said nothing and pulled back onto the road. Inside, silence. The woman sat with her arms wrapped protectively around her son, their clothes soaked and clinging. Water pooled beneath her on the leather seat, but she didn't seem to notice. The boy's teeth chattered. Thank you, she said softly. Evan nodded, but didn't look at her. His voice was cool. Where are you headed? Somewhere safe, she said, then added, we don't really have a place right now. He glanced at her. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow with exhaustion, but alert, watchful, like someone who hadn't slept soundly in weeks. What's your name? Lena, she replied, and this is Caleb. I'm Evan. He extended a hand. She took it hesitantly. Her grip was weak, but her eyes met his, unwavering. As the car turned into a private drive, the estate came into view, its iron gates swinging open to reveal a sleek modern home nestled behind rows of trees. The guest house lights flickered on automatically. You can stay here tonight, Evan said, gesturing as the driver parked. It's dry, there's food, it's safe. Lena stared at the house, stunned. Are you sure? I wouldn't have brought you otherwise. He stepped out first, umbrella in hand, and held it over them as they got out. She clutched Caleb tighter as they crossed the short walk to the guest house. Inside, Evan pointed out the basics: bathroom, kitchen, its spare clothes in the closet. Then, as he turned to leave, he felt a tug at his coat. Caleb had reached out, his tiny fingers brushing Evan's sleeve. Thank you, mister. Evan looked down. Something in his chest tightened. You're welcome, he said quietly, then stepped back into the rain, unaware that everything was already beginning to change. The next morning, the rain had faded into a soft drizzle, the sky still heavy with clouds but gentler now, like the storm had finally exhaled. Evan stood by the window of his home office, a steaming mug of black coffee in hand. From where he stood, he could see the small guest house nestled beneath the trees, its lights on, the curtains drawn. He hadn't slept much. Part of him kept wondering if Lena and Caleb had left before sunrise. He wouldn't have blamed them. He'd expected her to run. But she hadn't. At noon, he passed by the kitchen and paused, hearing faint laughter. Not Caleb's, Lena's. It was soft, fleeting, but it caught him off guard. He lingered by the doorway and watched through the glass as she stood near the back garden with the housekeeper, helping hang laundry under the awning. Caleb played a few feet away, pushing a toy truck Evan didn't remember buying. By late afternoon, Lena had started helping with small chores around the property, sweeping the patio, refolding the linen closet, even offering to cook. Evan hadn't asked her to. She just did, with the quiet determination of someone used to proving her worth, even when no one was watching. He noticed the little things first. The way she folded napkins with perfect corners, as if it mattered. The way she whispered softly to Caleb when she thought no one was listening, telling him stories or singing lullabies that sounded half forgotten. There was something grounding about her presence, like she was rebuilding herself one task at a time. Evan found himself watching more than he intended. She never intruded, never crossed into spaces uninvited. She knocked before entering any room that wasn't the guest house or kitchen. She kept to herself unless spoken to. But there were moments, fleeting and raw, that told him more than words ever could. One evening he passed by the living room and saw her crouched beside the fireplace with Caleb asleep on her lap, a blanket draped loosely around them. Her head leaned against the sofa, eyes half closed, humming something under her breath. She looked tired, worn, but peaceful. He didn't interrupt, just stood there watching until she looked up and caught his gaze. She smiled softly, then looked away. The next morning, while preparing coffee, Evan noticed a bandage on her wrist. Not fresh, but new enough. He said nothing at first, but when she turned to reach for a mug and her sleeve slipped down, he saw them, bruises, faint but visible, trailing up her forearm. "Did he do that?" he asked quietly. Lena froze, her back still to him. She didn't ask who. She didn't pretend not to know what he meant. "Yes," she whispered. The word hung in the air like smoke. He didn't press. Just nodded once, then changed the subject. But something inside him shifted. That night, over a modest dinner of roasted chicken and vegetables, something she insisted on cooking, Caleb called Evan, "Sir," then accidentally said, "Dad." The room went still. Lena's fork paused midair. Evan blinked. "I'm sorry," Caleb mumbled, shrinking into his chair. Lena reached over quickly. "It's okay, sweetheart. Eat your veggies." Evan didn't say anything. He just cleared his throat and offered the boy a smile. "Don't worry, kiddo. I've been called worse." Lena met his eyes across the table. She looked relieved, grateful, and something else. Something like guilt. Later that night, after the house had gone quiet, Evan returned to his study. A small book lay on the floor near the entry, a photo album. Curious, he picked it up, intending to leave it by the guest house in the morning. But as he flipped it open, a loose paper slipped out, a photograph of Lena and a man whose face had been scribbled over with black ink. Behind it, a folded restraining order. Evan stared at the document for a long time, heart heavy, mind racing. He wasn't sure what had brought Lena into his life that stormy night. But whatever it wasn't chance. And for reasons he didn't yet understand, he didn't want her, or Caleb, to leave. The days grew longer, warmer. Spring settled over the estate with budding leaves and birdsong, but Evan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It started subtly. A car parked too long outside the gates, an unfamiliar figure caught on one of the security cameras and disappearing before anyone could confront him. The staff brushed it off. But Evan noticed the change in Lena first. She jumped when the phone rang. She checked the locks 3 times before bed. One morning, when Caleb scraped his knee in the garden and let out a sharp cry, she sprinted across the lawn like her soul had left her body. When she scooped him up and saw it was only a scratch, she started to cry. Right there in the middle of the yard, holding him against her chest as if she'd almost lost him. Evan confronted her that night after Caleb had gone to sleep. She was folding laundry, quietly, methodically, like it was the only thing holding her together. "He's watching," she whispered without looking at him. "I can feel it." Evan's jaw tensed. "Trevor?" Lena nodded slowly. He used to do this. Before the last time I ran, he'd park down the street, follow me to work, wait outside Caleb's daycare. Never got close enough for the police to act, but always close enough for me to know. Why didn't you say something sooner? Because I didn't want to bring this into your home. You've already done more than enough. That's not your decision to make, he said, more sharply than intended. She flinched. His voice softened. This isn't just about you anymore, or me. She looked at him then, eyes rimmed with red. I thought I could outrun him, but he always finds us. Evan didn't respond right away. Instead, he checked every camera angle that night, reinforced the perimeter with his private security team, and slept with his phone beside him. He never said it aloud, but he didn't trust the walls to keep her safe. Not anymore. 2 nights later, the breach came. It was just past midnight when the motion sensors near the guest house triggered an alert. By the time Evan reached the scene, security had already surrounded the area. The intruder had fled, but left signs of forced entry. A broken window, a footprint in the flower bed, a smear of blood on the broken glass. Lena was clutching Caleb in the corner of the guest house, her whole body trembling, eyes wild with terror. He tried to get in, she said. I heard him calling Caleb's name. Evan's hands curled into fists. You're not staying here anymore. She didn't argue. He moved her and Caleb into the main house that night, gave her the guest suite upstairs, set up a guard rotation, and kept the security team on alert. But something had shifted. Lena walked the halls like a shadow, quiet, careful, carrying guilt in every step. Evan tried to make her see it wasn't her fault, but the look in her eyes said she didn't believe him. One evening, while checking on them, Evan found her in the living room. Caleb had finally fallen asleep on the couch beside her. The fireplace glowed low, casting amber light across her face. She sat unmoving, her arms wrapped around herself. When I left Trevor, she said suddenly, I didn't just leave because of what he did to me. I left because he threatened Caleb. Said if I ever took him away again, he'd make sure I never saw him alive. Evan sat down across from her, silent. I've lived in fear for so long, I don't remember what normal feels like. She laughed bitterly. And just when I started to believe we were safe again. You are, he said firmly. I won't let anything happen to you, or him. She looked at him then, not with hope but with disbelief, like no one had ever said those words and meant them. You don't have to be afraid anymore, he added. But even as he said it, he knew, until Trevor was gone, the fear wouldn't be. Evan awoke to silence, the kind of silence that felt wrong, the kind that signaled absence. He glanced at the time, 6:12 a.m. The hallway outside his room was still dim, bathed in the bluish tint of early morning light. Normally by now he'd hear Caleb's soft footsteps down the hall, or the gentle hum of Lena singing in the kitchen. But today, nothing. He walked to the guest suite. The door was ajar, empty. The bed was neatly made, the room spotless. The dresser drawers open, vacant. Caleb's favorite blanket, gone. Panic prickled down his spine. He rushed to the kitchen, then the garden, then checked every room in the main house. No sign of them. His voice echoed as he called their names. Nothing. Then he saw it, on the front steps, tucked beneath a ceramic pot of lavender. A folded piece of paper. Evan, thank you for everything. For the shelter, the kindness, the safety you gave us when we had nothing. But I can't let my past become your burden. Trevor is watching, and I know he won't stop until he gets what he wants. I can't let him bring chaos to your life. You gave Caleb peace. I won't let that be shattered. Please don't look for us. I'm sorry. Lena. The world around him narrowed to the tight curve of her handwriting. His jaw clenched. His hands trembled with a fury he hadn't felt in years. She was gone. She'd left to protect him, but in doing so, she had walked right back into the danger she'd just escaped. He stormed back into the house, summoning his head of security. Get me every second of security footage from the last 24 hours. Every camera, every angle. Check the gates, check the road. I want to see exactly when she left, what direction, who followed. Yes, sir. It didn't take long. One of the cameras had caught it, Trevor, lurking near the edge of the woods, barely visible in the shadows, talking to Lena outside the guest suite. The footage had no sound, but it didn't need it. The way Trevor leaned in close, the way Lena's shoulders curled inward, shielding Caleb, the way she handed him a small envelope. Everything screamed fear and coercion. "I didn't think it was my place, sir," the housekeeper admitted later, wringing her hands. "But I saw him yesterday, near the guest house. He was shouting, said awful things, that he'd take Caleb, that she owed him." "You should have told me," Evan growled. "I thought she had it under control. I didn't want to interfere." "She was terrified," he snapped. "She never had it under control. No one can with someone like him." Evan didn't wait. He mobilized every contact he had, hired a private investigator, pulled favors from a few friends in law enforcement, and accessed Lena's phone history through an encrypted network his company used for internal tracking. A gas station transaction, a bus ticket, a camera at a highway toll plaza. It all led him north, 3 days of chasing faint traces, each one colder than the last, until finally, an old man running a corner store in a small industrial town remembered her. "Said she needed work," the man mumbled. "Had a kid with her. Sweet boy. I told her the diner near the train yard might take her in. They've had girls like her before." Evan didn't sleep that night. He drove straight through until the landscape turned unfamiliar, until the lights thinned and the rain came again, heavy and hard, just like the night he'd first met her. And there she was, behind a shattered window in an abandoned warehouse near the tracks. A thin mattress, a portable heater. Lena, huddled beside Caleb, wrapped in a threadbare blanket, eyes sunken from exhaustion. He stepped forward, water sloshing in his shoes, his heart pounding like war drums in his chest. She turned. Her breath caught. "Evan." He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She slipped outside, standing beneath a rusted awning that offered no shelter from the storm. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "You shouldn't be here either." Her voice cracked. "I thought I could handle it. I thought I was keeping you safe. You think I care about safety more than I care about you?" His voice broke. And then she ran. And Evan chased her into the rain. Evan's feet pounded against the soaked pavement, the rain stinging his face as he chased her through the narrow alley behind the warehouse. Lena's silhouette darted ahead, her bare feet splashing through puddles, her breath ragged in the cold night air. She moved like a ghost, fast and fragile, the storm swallowing the sound of his name as he called out to her. But he didn't stop. He couldn't. He caught her halfway down the block, his hand reaching out, not to grab but to anchor. His fingers closed gently around her wrist, enough to make her turn. She spun to face him, rain dripping from her lashes, her chest heaving with sobs. "Let me go," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Stop running," he said, breathless, his eyes searching hers. "Please, Lena, just stop." Her shoulders trembled. "I don't know how," she choked out. "All I've done for years is run." He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, like she might vanish again. Then, "Let this be the last time." Her lip quivered, and when he reached for her, she didn't resist. She collapsed into his arms, fists gripping the back of his soaked coat, her face pressed against his chest. Her entire body shook, not from the cold but from everything she'd held in for far too long. "I've already lost one family," he whispered against her hair. "Don't make me lose another." She sobbed harder, walls crumbling all around them. The thunder rolled overhead, but Evan didn't hear it. All he heard was her breath, broken and desperate, and the way her heart pounded against his. "You're not alone anymore," he murmured, "and you never will be again." They stayed that way for what felt like forever, two people soaked to the bone, standing in the ruins of all the fear they'd carried, and finally letting it go. By the time they returned to the warehouse, Caleb was awake, his small body curled tightly on the mattress. His eyes widened when he saw Evan, and he sat up, blinking sleepily. "You found us." Evan knelt beside him, brushing wet curls from the boy's forehead. "Of course I did. I always will." 2 weeks later, Lena stood on the steps of Evan's home again, but this time there was no hesitation in her stance, no fear in her eyes. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back, Caleb's hand tucked firmly in hers. Evan opened the door before she could knock. "Welcome home," he said. Caleb ran to him, arms outstretched, and Evan scooped him up with ease, holding him close like he'd always been his. Lena followed, quieter, her fingers gripping the strap of her bag like it was the last thing tethering her to the ground. But when she stepped through the doorway, she exhaled. Not with fear, but with relief. It was real. They were safe. Over the following weeks, the house transformed. Evan had the east wing repainted in soft colors. He added a playroom for Caleb, filled with books, plush rugs, and a small window seat overlooking the garden. Lena's favorite flowers bloomed along the patio, and the kitchen once again smelled like cinnamon and warm bread. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Evan asked Lena to walk with him by the lake. Caleb ran ahead with a toy sailboat, laughing as it floated near the edge. They stopped at the same spot where Evan had once told her about his parents, where silence had once been his only companion. Now, he turned to her, heart full, hands steady. "Why do I feel like this isn't just a walk?" she asked, her smile soft but knowing. Evan said nothing. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. When he opened it, the ring inside sparkled, simple, timeless, like her. "I've had money, power, everything people think matters," he said quietly, "but none of it ever felt like mine until you and Caleb walked into my life." Tears filled her eyes. "Evan, I don't just want to protect you," he continued. "I want to grow old with you. I want a family, not out of obligation, but out of love, out of choice." He got down on one knee. "Lena Morgan, will you marry me?" She nodded, tears spilling freely now. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." From the shore, Caleb shouted, "Did Mommy say yes?" Lena laughed through her tears. She did. And as they walked back home, hand in hand, the lake shimmering behind them, Evan knew this was what it meant to be found, to stop running, to finally belong. Sometimes, life has a way of bringing the right people together at the most unexpected moments, often in the middle of storms, both literal and emotional. Evan, Lena, and Caleb remind us that even when we feel broken, even when the past claws at our heels, hope can still find a way in. Their story isn't just about romance. It's about healing, about second chances, about choosing love, not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. The lesson here is clear. Kindness is never wasted. A single act, opening a car door on a rainy night, changed the course of 3 lives. It doesn't take grand gestures or perfect timing to make an impact. Sometimes, it's about showing up, listening, holding space for someone who's forgotten what safety feels like. And when we let people in, not just into our homes but into our hearts, we create space for something lasting. We all carry burdens we don't speak of. We all have regrets, fears, memories that haunt us. But just like Evan and Lena, we can choose not to be defined by them. We can choose connection over isolation, courage over fear, and love over silence. So wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, remember, you are never too far gone to start again. If this story moved you, reminded you of the strength and compassion, or gave you hope in second chances, we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more real, emotional, and inspiring tales that remind us of the goodness still left in the world. Thank you for being here.